Раз, раз, раз. Hello, hello. Mic check. 1, 2, 3. Camera check. Check, check, check. Okay, and we are live. It has been an extremely long time since Mike me coming online and posting anything. It's been an interesting month. The internet was, shooting me in the leg a couple of times. I was lucky enough for it to work for me when I needed it to do some minimal work that I do currently. And apart from me, also for Karina, which was extremely helpful. This is kind of incredible how this internet connection managed to break every time I tried to post or go live. But anyway, now it's a new time because the internet connection is supposed to be pretty good, and I kinda got lucked out with the internet connection itself. So anyway, yes, we were losing so much money on the worst possible internet for the 21st century, which is interesting, and maybe I'll make a completely new video about this. But anyway, hello, zdravo, привет, howdy everyone, and welcome to my stream. It has been a long time. I missed you. I miss talking to you, to the camera as well. Today's topic, it's a kind of spicy one. I have like a weird relationship with this topic because first of all I came from Russia, and second of all, well, we'll see. So the topic is Russo-phobia, or the anti-Russian sentiment, as it's called in English. Russo-phobia in Russia, and oh wow, it's a huge thing in Russia right now. So I decided that I would talk about this thing, and I started researching it on the internet, and I've heard a couple of things even before that. Most of them were said by Putin or his minions, and so many people in Russia believe that to be true. The whole concept of Russophobia, of the resurgence of Russophobia in the whole world, basically. I was very skeptical about it. I even thought that it was something that was completely made up, and it's multiple facts and things that have pointed to me forming this opinion. But apparently this thing is very true. existed in the history of the world for quite a long time. Hello, last one 207, welcome. Glad you're here. So yes, Russophobia apparently does exist, and it has existed for a very long time. So history dates back to 18th century. So that's a long one. So when the whole Europe was in the Enlightenment period, as it's called in the books. I'm glad to hear it. Last one 207. So Russia was apparently seen as backwards back at the time, and in a way it has Russian Empire. It was at the time, it was quite big already, and it was quite powerful as well. Back at the time, it was extremely important for the concept of power, for someone to have territory for the country, right? Now not as much, but anyway. So here it was 18th century, and there was something starting, and the black image of Russia was created or something. Then it was extremely reinforced, this concept, at the times of Napoleonic Wars, and we know those, they were huge. I mean, even still in Russia there is this like, how do I translate it? Like stuff that is written at like poetry that you and almost every single school student teaches and gets a grade for it after citing it. It's something about Napoleonic Wars and how they ended in Moscow, how Napoleon stood on this hill and was asking for the keys for the gates of Moscow and Russia, and basically Moscow was burned down, and it was winter time, and it was burned down by Russians to make him retreat, basically. This was an interesting move, and it was a completely different time back then, but anyway. So time goes on, of course, and things change. The regime changes, and of course we have, in the 20th century, we have Russia as a communist power, and most of the other world is non-communist at the time, and in a way Russia is seen as like communist Soviet Russia, USSR, is seen as a threat to the values of Americans and Europeans and so on. And another resurgence happened of this Russophobia, and the power of it increased, and propaganda. I mean, you can still see in the movies these horrible Russians, the communist Russians, saying comrade, and speaking in a very badly pronounced English, with horrible pronunciation and everything like this, which is kind of funny. And but now I see it as like a cultural element of sorts, like this TV series that came out recently, quite recently. What was it called? Stranger Things, and they portrayed Russians there, communist Russians as well. But yeah, this is kind of funny to me anyway. But so that's like a quick history recap. So anti-Russian sentiment continues on and increases in power in the middle of the wars that happened in the previous century. But all in all, after the breakup of the USSR, the Russo-phobia declined, and like it was an all-time low. So the statistic was I don't remember exactly by whom, that in America 25% of Americans in 1991 thought that Russia is bad. 25% of Americans. And in 1999, so almost at the beginning of 21st century, it was 59% all of a sudden among Americans, that is. I also had a bit of a chat with the artificial intelligence chat GPT about that. I guess he's saying interesting things. I would love to make a video about it, like talking politics, Russian politics, to a chat GPT. This might be interesting, because what he is saying, I cannot jump in the same boat with an AI here. I don't know, maybe they updated it and it became too politically correct, but anyway. Yeah, back to the topic. So there we have it, 1999, and the 59% of Americans are thinking that Russia is bad. And that was even before the time that Putin came into power. So now he comes at around, it was the 2000s. 23 years already. He becomes the president, and a lot of things start happening all around Russia, in the neighboring countries as well. And what happened, for example, was that in the 2000s, like 2001, when Putin becomes president, there is this small country, Southern Ossetia. You probably have never heard about it, but anyway, this situation with it, you probably have heard about Georgia right now, and how it has treated Russian people in, well, very respectfully, I have to say. And well, in 2001, so there was USSR, it broke up, and Georgia was part of the USSR, and as well as there were a couple of other regions that existed around Georgia that historically were parts of Georgia, but things were fiddled quite a bit. I'm not going to go very deep into how exactly those things happened. It's a very long story. I read quite a bit of Wikipedia on it, and it's very intertwined and quite long history. But anyway, so this Southern Ossetia didn't actually exist before the Soviet Union, and it existed because Soviet Union decided that it should. Maybe because as most leaders, I guess, people of power would they would love to split up powerful entities or somewhat powerful entities to make them less powerful, to control them separately. Anyway, I mean, that's not a bad thing to split things up, and especially if they want to, but anyway, yeah. Russia puts down a pro-Russian president to this Southern Ossetia, and there also another area which is really close. It's like next to Georgia, both of those territories, and Abkhazia, it was the second one. So Russia starts giving away Russian passports to the people of these entities, and Georgia is against this, and historically it's Georgian territory. So anyway, 2008, and a Russia-Georgian war breaks out, and boom, another spike in the Russo-phobia, which is completely understandable, as well as the fact that Georgia is trying at the moment to get into the European Union, and it's not going very well, and especially because probably because of the harsh relations between Georgia and Russia, and Europe doesn't really want to have a territory so far away that they couldn't really protect or defend, and maybe there are other reasons in play, but this seems to be the most obvious, I would say. Then of course we have like the annexation of Crimea, and the apparent Russian interference with the US elections, which is kind of interesting, because as far as I hear right now, that there's proof coming up that it didn't really happen, and it's kind of far-fetched. I mean, Russia, it's not what Russia does. I mean, yes, Putin does some weird stuff, but he's so basic. Like, the things that he does and uses, all of those things were existing in the previous century. None of those he came up with. None of those. So he's not using the new stuff like ever. Like poisoning people, that's since the beginning of humankind. Well, bombing areas, well, for the whole of previous century was about bombing, and before that we had catapults and stuff. So I don't know, there's nothing new. about what he does, none of those. And saying that he made it so that Russian hackers hacked into American databases to skew the results of it's too much. It's he never would do this. Like, it's too brainy for him, okay? And that's about it. And that was 2016. So all of these things that I'm saying right now, they are boosting the Russophobia like crazy. And now we have the Ukraine war, of course, which skyrocketed the anti-Russian sentiment as well. Understandably so. And all of this time, like, as I remember myself, not exactly all of this time, but about half of the time of Putin's rule, on the news and everywhere, you hear and see the whole time you hear that Russophobia is real, that the America is trying to control us, that Europe is under the heel of US, which I understand why he is doing this, but I never believed any of this. All the time, like anything that happened, anything at all, any internal problem, America is the problem. If we find someone that some of our how would I call it, political people did something wrong, stole something, what happens is, yes, but Americans did something as well, look, and it's Russophobia, and why are you so Russophobic? So now we have rules, like laws, actual laws, and you get punished by them quite harshly. So people go to jail for up to 10 years, 5 years, and so on. So it's all, even though I doubted the real existence of Russophobia before I actually started researching it, I still don't believe that it actually exists in a way that he says it does. So yes, it does exist, and some of the things that happen is like companies that have Russian names in them changing the names so people would buy more stuff, or wouldn't buy less of their stuff just because of that, like cancel culture and so on. Yes, some people are getting pummeled because of them being Russian. Maybe even someone would lose their job because they're Russian. And of course all of these things did increase because of the facts that I've stated. But the whole story is weird for me, because all the time that we heard this from the TV, the radio, news papers, it has never been obvious how would they have a different opinion. Is anything actually happening? Like, is anyone really doing something in the whole of the government of the huge Russia to minimize these damages? And if so, are people thinking at a couple of levels and not just one, like, how are we going to cover this up so it looks a bit worse than it does? Not this way of thinking, but thinking in the first place, like, whose arses are we covering right now? Like, why are we doing the thing that we're doing? Really? It's never very obvious. It's never any significant job that is being done, because all of the things that happen on the TV, we see that, yeah, we are doing this because we are stating our power. Like, what do you mean you're stating your power? So it's like someone is eating their breakfast, you go up to them, like, and smash their plate up, like salad everywhere, on your face, on your hands, and all around you. And you are like, I'm stating my power. You see me now. What is this? Is this really stating your power, or are you just being a bully? Just a bully and nothing else. Like, 5 minutes you wouldn't exist in this room and everybody would forget about you. Is this real power? Like having a gun constantly pointed at your not like opponents, but people you're speaking to. Is this real power? I don't know. And it seems like not really many people think about it in Russia. And the whole of propaganda is it's true in 50%. And all of the other stuff is made up to cover up all these foolishness that is being done by the government. I'm not stating that that Russia is the only one that is being foolish. I'm not saying that, but it's kind of crazy, and all of this is existing because people feel horrible. People feel horrible all the time in Russia. You talk to them about almost anything, and once you go just 2 levels deeper in any conversation, family, work, state of their home, apartment building, I don't know, state of the asphalt around them, people dive into this existential dread that they try to quickly escape from. And they do it by either calling you names because it's uncomfortable, so of course they would try to hide it. They would call you, but basically those things that they hear from the TV. We used to have in Russia these caricatures, if that is the correct term, of quite a lot of them, and they were very popular. You would see them in even newspapers, which are right now very limited in what they can print and cannot. Even the cheap ones and the free ones that you get But anyway, these caricatures were quite spot on. And one of those was like a thin man, very poorly dressed, and an extremely fat governor of sorts. And he has like piles of money stuck into his pockets and falling out of his fat hands and so on. And so this man asks him, like, why don't we fix this problem? And he's stating some problem. Why are you doing this? And the response of this governor, why do you hate Russia so much? And it completely shows the whole picture, I would say. Yes, simplified, but it's spot on. How the Russian government works around people that have any opinion about what they are doing. Every time someone says about some politician or like a law that has been passed, this is the thing that gets pushed. And of course on the TVs now, on the government ones, you wouldn't even be allowed to say those things. There's like basically there's almost never live stream formats now on the TV. Like almost never. Because people are fearful that you would say something that comes out wrong, and so things like that would be cut out. Even if a live stream is on now, it's on a delay, so people would have time to remove this information. But so you live in this vacuum, right? And you see those problems, and you have nobody to speak about them, and you can do nothing to change those things. But it didn't like drop from thin air all of a sudden, and it's a long journey for those people to end up here. But another interesting thing that I've heard a couple of times from completely different people. Like, wow, they are from different planets almost. And apart from that, they came from different places as well, different ages. And the thing they said was that the most Russo-phobic people on the planet are Russians. So the first time I've heard this, I didn't really give it much of a thought. I thought this to be peculiarly interesting and kind of funny. And I was quite young, but now I was driving, doing a thing here, not driving myself, with a couple of other Russians, and he told me a story of him hearing this saying, and I really thought through it, like really tried to, and it all makes sense. We hear in Russia those sayings of that everyone is out to get us, which could be understandable. But if you really read through the history of the latest things that happened, you could easily understand the position of those people. But the thing about Russophobia in Russia towards Russian is it's so deeply rooted into the people in ways, and it starts from your birth, basically. I mean, with the hands that actually you come in contact with the first, these workers, right? These medics that you spawn into the hands of those, you get dropped into those, and those people are not like welcoming. Those people work cheap jobs, and in the Soviet Union you are just another pawn. You are nothing really. You're not a human being, and a child like this, it's nothing, because it can't even work. So the only thing it does, it yells, and nobody really likes the yells of a child. And the thing is that is still prevalent in Russia in some areas, is when you deliver a baby, the baby would be taken away from you for hours and hours. You will only see it if it needs to be fed. And it needs to be fed when those workers think that they do. So how about that? I don't know where you live, but almost everywhere I heard this, that it's never like this. And it's actually been proven that this does damages the minds of children of this age when the mother is taken away. And it's still existing at the time of today. Then you go to a preschool, right, which is called yasli in Russian. It's very, very young, from 4 years old, and you would get one worker, one teacher for 20 or 30 of those kids. And the regime there, it's you're like in a jail, basically. It's getting better over time, but it's no walk in the park being there. You would actually get hit, and at some places you would get yelled at. You would be put in the corner and would stay there. And there is another thing that they still do sometimes, is you put children on their knees on the like beans, basically, but not beans exactly. Горох, the small green ones. I forgot what they called. And thank you, Cassie. So they would be standing there for hours on their knees in the corner on these beans, just like a punishment, and it hurts, all right. There are multiple other ways you would get punished in these basically camps for children, and so many Russians still believe that this is the correct way to grow people up, because this is how their parents were grown up, raised, and their parents and their grandparents and so on. Then you go to the school, and in the school you are just another brick in the wall. You are standing there. You get grades from the first year of school, and they would go from 1 to 5, or from 5 to 1, 5 being the highest, and 1 is like you have to be, I don't know, throwing gum and yelling at your teacher. This is what a 1 is. So you go, sounds alright, but it's not really, because the information that is being said is very strictly set, and the people that work in schools, they don't get much pay at all, just as well as the previous workers of the preschool and the maternity, or however you call it, these medical workers as well, of the free medical system that is present in Russia. It's free, but you are nothing, and nobody respects you for anything. Maybe you would have some assistance, proper medical assistance, if you are lucky, but probably not. And free it is because even now, like how many 30 years after the Soviet Union, to get proper treatment and to get real medical workers, like serious people, not these crappy ones that drink vodka all the time while they're operating and cutting people up, not made up. It's to do this, you might need to pay like a fat stack of cash to the local highest medical worker of like administrative, that does administrative work now. He's not really a medical professional now, but he has these achievements all over his wall, but he's not really a good worker himself. He's just taking money and appointing actual working people to those who pay him enough. That's just basically bribes, right? So back to the teachers, almost exactly the same story continues, because relations are extremely important. It doesn't really matter whether you know the thing that you are supposed to know when you are going to the school. It's enough if you have a good relationship with the teacher. Just raise your hand once a month. Don't yell. And if someone does something wrong, you do something that's right, and that's it. And what I mean, you maybe come to the teacher and say, oh, this guy is doing this, he's not actually doing his homework, and so on. So you would rat people out and do those sorts of things, not respectful things, helpful things, helping other people out and your fellow classmates. Oh, he's smoking after school. And yeah, most of Russians smoke from 11, 12 of age, and drinking from about the same, maybe a year later. Some start even way younger. And when you get a bad reputation with a teacher, there's very little you can actually do, because the teacher wouldn't really say that to your parents. He would hide it from them. And there would be this secrety, dark stuff happening inside the school, with teachers telling on the children to each other. And they would make up this broken image of a child that they would together punish, basically, in psychological ways. So it's almost everywhere. Yes, some people are lucky to get on the good side, but some people are unlucky because they are simply I don't know, the teacher doesn't like your name or surname. He doesn't like your haircut, and he would make fun of you in front of the whole school even, and so on. So here you go, 11 years of school in Russia, and it goes like this, and for almost every single Russian. Then you go where, if you're a male, you would after leaving school, you would want to go to the university, because there's a very serious chance you would go to the army. And what's in the army? Why is it so bad? Is it really so bad? And as there is this saying, oh, men used to go to war and so on. Yeah, no. When you go to the Russian army, you go to possibly one of the worst places you could be in Russia. You might as well go to jail for 1 year, maybe even 2. At least people in the jail would have some sort of working hierarchy system and respect to some sorts of people. And if you do things right, you really probably wouldn't get punished much. Yeah, there are some people that are not that great. I mean, that's the jail, right? But it's going to the army is quite close to going to the jail. You would actually get hit by chairs. Not like, oh, we will build your muscle, we will build your mental strength. No, they would just make fun of you, you know. They would hit you. They would make you put snow in in perfect forms with your spade, you wouldn't like even shoot the gun. Maybe once or twice in a year. You wouldn't even really do much physical workouts. You would do stupid things that would break your sense of self. But anyway, people go to the university, right? And yes, it would be something different there. No, nothing different. So all of the levels, no matter where you go, no matter how long you stay there, on all the levels, you get hate and disrespect. They would say you mean nothing, and they would repeat it many times over and over and over, until you would start saying that you mean nothing. That's what it means. Couldn't have said it better myself. This is how you make a 158 million country into a country of slaves, basically. The sheep and the wolves. This is what are the people in Russia. Yeah. It pisses me off, There is very little that you can actually do to change that. So anyway, how things are. Last one, 207. KCM. How you doing, guys? Is anyone else here in the chat that haven't spoken yet? By the way, another interesting thing that there was a poll by Pew Research Center in 2019, and 43% of Russians favored US and only 29% hated it. And at the same time in America, 47% Americans unfavored Russia and 22% favored. I wonder what the statistics are currently in Russia and in the US. Might be completely different with the recent stuff, very recent stuff happening. But yeah, it's kind of crazy. Like the whole country is indoctrinated with nihilism. No respect for the family, no respect for the country, no respect for the lives of others. Hello, Lala. Cassie M. How did you survive this, Alex? Well, I have to say, in some things I was like really lucky, but in other things, one of the things was that I didn't go to those preschool things, because I went to it, and I was about 5 when I went there, and it was a, how would I say it properly? It's like a personal thing, like a group of children were in a home of a woman that would look after us. So in that way I was lucky, and my brother wasn't. He went to a classic one. Some weird things happened there. I would need to ask him what happened exactly. In the school, we went to the same school with my brother, and he's 5 years older than me, and when we both went to the school that was considered to be the best school in the district, but I don't know, it might be the best, because the next one, the closest one, there would be actually children taking drugs there, like from a syringe. I could only imagine what was in it, and my school wasn't like this. It was trying really hard to be the best school, but it was like obviously trying to look better. And the people that worked there, they were of those types, I mean, and they thought like this, and they were horrible. Like, the people that go into schools to be teachers in Russia is a very particular type of person, and there's very little percentage of people that actually care for the children and how they think and how to develop them. Most of the people that go there, they didn't grow up themselves. They are like small people of very unadvanced thinking that have old bodies, and it actually makes things worse, because it's not like, oh, they know how to talk with children because they young at heart. They are not young at heart, they are broken at heart, and they have childish thinking, and they don't know how to get out of it. So my teachers were similar, and my way of coping with that was being this cast out person that almost all of the teachers would be saying that he doesn't know anything, and they would just, like, wouldn't care about me that much. At times it would backfire at me, but this image actually helped me cope quite a bit. I wasn't into this whole process of destroying my self-image. I was trying to understand myself, and I was very protective of my, I can't say of my boundaries, because I was pushed around by teachers a bit, but I don't know. It wasn't like easy. I wouldn't want to say that, oh, it was so hard, but yeah, it was tough. But as in Russia people say, it could have been worse. It's a mantra that Russians say in every single situation that happens. Oh, we lost 50,000 people in Ukraine. It could have been worse. You know? Yeah. And in the university, and while you're in school, everyone is saying, oh, you would go into the university, it would be a completely different thing. It's exactly the same. You go into the university and they treat you like trash in there. Like, you would have, they try to make you, no, they don't try to make you, they don't even expect you to try to prove your point to be true. So, for example, my fiance Karina had, while she was studying, she was working at the same time. So she would study at daytime and she would work at nighttime. And a couple of teachers would like hate her, and they would make her like stand up and make her like ask her questions that like, you should have been, maybe you should come to the to the to the lessons more often. Maybe you should do the homework more often, like in front of the whole class. And she's like, I couldn't come because I have a job, and if I wouldn't have the job, like, I wouldn't be able to study. So what can I do to like make it up? Oh, did you come here to work or to study? Like, what the hell is wrong with you? What is your question? Woman, like, you're coming here to teach, you make money for it. And she comes there to study, and she pays for it. And like, her parents couldn't pay for it. Like, it's so broken. The whole system is broken deeply. And of course, we get these ridiculously broken people at the output of the system, you know. It's kind of crazy. And by the way, I meet a couple of people that have moved their children here to Serbia, and Serbia is an ex-Soviet country, so you would imagine that it's similar. It's very similar how things are. Serbian language is similar. The way of life is quite similar. So quite a lot of similarities. But they would put their own children, the Russians, into local schools. And they say, like, children come back from school and they are like shocked. Like, the father or the mother would ask, like, how was your day? And they would say, I don't know. The teacher would actually explain things to me, you know. The teacher would come up to me and ask if I understood everything. The other students come up to me and help me do the work, the studying. They would explain things to me. Like, I don't know. It's kind of crazy. And while you're in Russia, everyone is saying that, wow, Russian system of the teaching system is so advanced that everybody, like the UK and people all over the world would take this system into play, and how, wow, it's so great and so powerful, and it's because of the Soviet Union that it still exists, and it's so rubbish. I mean, so we have one of the most, the statistic is kind of crazy. The amount of grown-ups that have university degrees, I don't know the exact number, but it's like top 5 countries in the entire world, closing to the first position. And so many grown-ups have 2 or 3 degrees. Complete university degrees. So they spent 15 years at least, or 10 years, apart from 11 school years of studying. This didn't help anyone. These people, apart from still working these dumb jobs, they are still broken people that even don't know how to use the knowledge that they apparently have, because they have proof of having this knowledge on a paper, right? No, like, they are horrible workers, they are horrible people, so many of them. I'm not saying like all of them, no, but I have worked a couple of jobs. Most of the people I've worked with have a degree, and it's pointless to them. Not in a way that, oh, this job market is broken. It's not like broken. This study system is broken. It's giving useless information to these people. Anyway, yeah. Thank you, Lala. Yes, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. In English, I hear it's pressure builds diamonds. Yes, it does, but it also crushes everything that couldn't become one. And if you start early enough trying to break a person, you would actually succeed. And I was lucky that my parents weren't broken enough to do this to me, and it didn't work out as it did for so many people. The amount of times you would get punished for having your own opinion in Russia, it's shocking. It's shocking. Even though it's the 21st century and we're not a Soviet country anymore. Anyway. And it's always easy to say things when you're grown up, because you forget how it was when you were a child. And all of these people that are in schools in Russia, even these teachers and at universities, they have completely forgotten what it's like to be a student or a school student or a child. Like most of them, one of the most famous sayings, citations of Putin's friend and ex-Russian president Dmitry Medvedev is that he was asked the question, when are you going to raise the minimum wage of teachers? And his answer was, to be a teacher is a life path. It's something you have to be born for. If you want to make money, you should become a businessman, not a teacher. Shouldn't you? And that's it. And so that's how we have in Russia, we have people who are teachers and students working on a 30 child class, and maybe even more, and they would work like this for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. On the same job, like the same school, oftentimes the same like the same topic, the same everything for many, many, many years. And this is how they get a raise. But people who come from a university, they don't really get any money at all. And the people who work for many years in a row, they would get a very limited paycheck, so limited that in Georgia, the country I was speaking about previously, a tiny country that Russia fought a war against, not the first one, possibly the first one, actually, if you look at the history. And it has a law that people getting less than 80,000 rubles equivalent in their local money are considered how would I say it, below minimal wage. So they would get subsidized by the government. 80,000 rubles. So a teacher that would work for many, many years, like decades in a row, would get about 60,000 rubles, maybe 70,000 rubles. If he's extremely lucky to get into a good school, 80,000 rubles. Below the poverty line of Georgia. It's crazy. And people coming from a university, the new teachers, they would get 40,000 rubles. So if we would translate it, okay, I accidentally disconnected my internet cable. Let me translate this money. So 80,000 rubles, if a teacher is lucky, is about, if we translate it to dollars, it's about $1,000 a month, if he's lucky. But 40,000 is $500. So you go to a school for 11 years, you finish the university, you go to a school to get $500 a month. That's good money, right? So you actually would get more, almost twice as much if you become a courier for some shop. Yeah. This is how you make orcs for your Sauron army and send them to war anywhere you want. Okay, guys. I will be finishing the stream pretty soon. It was interesting talking to you. I accidentally disconnected the cable because I dropped the phone, so I'm still using Wi-Fi, but I'm getting Wi-Fi to the mobile phone and I'm getting internet on my PC through the cable from the phone. It's a kind of clumsy setup, but it works for now. Thank you everybody for coming today. Lala. How late were you, by the way? Maybe you didn't miss as much. Me just blabbering about history, probably. Of history of Russo-phobia. The thing that I thought was completely made up, but it's partly made up, like almost every single thing that Putin says. So his arse would be covered up. This is how he rolls. Good strategy. Works for some people. Missed an hour. Well, you got to the good stuff. Yeah, this hour. A brief history of the whole Russo-phobia thing. And a bit about Georgia. The tastiest of the story is at the end of it. Like, some people like to read the book starting from the last page. 50,000 per year. That's almost 5,000. It's a 4,000, 4.5, a bit over 4,500 per month. Yeah. Starting salary. Wow. Yeah. And you might have noticed that if you're buying fresh food, it's the prices are not very different in Canada or the US in comparison to Russia. So yeah, some things cost way much more. I also have noted this interesting thing about technology and the recent advancements with the whole batteries and electric vehicles and the internet and the whole thing. That in lower income countries, sometimes pressure does actually builds creates diamonds. In like the African country I watched, what's the name of it? It's escaping me currently. So the story is that it's a very rural country, quite small, but not tiny, and the roads are horrible, and they need something to or someone to send. They previously used couriers to send vital organs or like medicine and stuff like this. So they developed a thing which doesn't exist anywhere in the world, and it allows them to send. For example, you work in a hospital and you need something that has finished. You have an app, you check the things that you need, and a sorting center sends, like catapults actually, a drone that resembles a plane visually, and it goes at a very high speed over the skies, right, over the land, and drops down a box of your medical supplies from the sky in the flight. It doesn't land the thing. It lands only at the base it comes from. And it happens in minutes, like literal minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes tops. In almost all of the country, you get these packages. They have 2 centers and they cover all of the country. Each drone can fly up to 150 miles, I believe, back and forth together. And in 15 minutes, anywhere in the country, you can get almost any medical supply you need. And if you would have done it on land, it would have taken you 3 hours or something like this. How about that? And it's so silent. It drops the package on a parachute, and you get an notification when the plane is close and a place where it would drop it. So cool, so cool. Yeah. And apparently it will be coming to US quite soon. And the guy that came up with this thing is a local engineer. Very cool technology, saving lives, and only existent in some African country. And its name sounds almost like Wakanda. But it escapes me right now. Anyway, thanks everybody once again for coming and listening to me, talking and caring, basically. Always nice to see you. Bye bye, guys. Чао. До свидания.